Crisis and the financial service industry's culpability, the culture wars, the erosion of the middle class. If my guest today has his way, he'll be hip deep in all of that stuff about a year from now. Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Barry Ellsworth joins me on the agenda right after this.
We have reached a landmark settlement with the nation's largest banks that will speed relief to the hardest hit homeowners and some of the most abusive practices of the mortgage industry, and begin to turn the page on an era of recklessness that has left so much damage in its wake.
There's your president putting a nice face on today's settlement between federal and state officials and the nation's largest mortgage giants. Welcome back to the agenda. I'm Hugh Jackson. Joining me now is Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Barry Ellsworth. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on to the show. I know that your campaign has an awful lot of interest in the financial services industry, the housing crisis, the relationship between the two. I will get to that in a minute, but first, I think a lot of people are saying, who is this guy? And he's running for U.S. Senate. So who are you? And you're running for U.S. Senate?
Yeah. Well, my name is Barry Ellsworth, like you said. My background is in the financial arena. I've been involved in finance for over 25 years of my life. In 2004, I started a company that I'm probably most famous for now, entitled Green Plains Renewable Energy. I started it here in Las Vegas. It's now the fourth largest ethanol company in the world. So I understand finance very, very well.
Well, obviously, most people, when they hear that you are running for Senate as a Democrat, obviously Shelley Berkley is running for Senate as a Democrat, and so, you know, the natural inclination, and perhaps not an unfair one on the part of most folks, is to dismiss you. I mean, she has a long history of working within Democratic circles. I mean, she clearly has the backing of all the support. You're not going to get money from any of the industries in the state. I understand you have your own means that you can put into the campaign. But, I mean, how do you break through just that bar in and of itself?
Well, here's my thinking. We've all heard the adage, or the definition of insanity. Okay? A person who continues to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. These people have been back there for 10 or 20 years. Shelley Berkley, everybody from Nevada created the too big to fail banks when they passed Gramm-Leach-Bliley in 1999. She voted for it. Everyone else was there. They made the too big to fail banks. Okay, it's their fault.
Well, we can circle around to that in a minute. I want to come back to this foreclosure crisis, though, very quickly, or this foreclosure agreement, rather, that happened today. $26 billion. You know, Nevada homeowners themselves are underwater to the tune of about $14 billion if you add up the difference between what the value of homes are and what people actually own. I mean, what's your reaction to this agreement that's announced today?
I think it's letting the banks off the hook. They created the problem. What we need to do is reinstate Glass-Steagall. We need to take Wall Street out of the banks.
Okay, but reinstating Glass-Steagall, I mean, I'm with you so far, right? I mean, that's going forward, that might help to keep these guys from rattling up all this exotica that they're gambling on the markets and such. But in terms of dealing with people that are underwater now, reimposing Glass-Steagall is not going to help them. What should be done now?
What I would do on my website, barryellsworth.us, we've started a petition about a week ago, and we want people to sign it, and if you're listening to this, please go sign it. It's barryellsworth.us. It's a petition we want to send to the President and to Governor Sandoval to issue executive stop orders that they can't foreclose. A bank cannot foreclose until some things happen. This would have to be passed in legislation, but in April, I bought a house on a short sale. I paid $155 for a home that a lady paid $380 for a few years ago. On that loss, there was no loss for the banks. You and I are paying for that.
Right.
The taxpayer. They continue to give these sweetheart deals to the banks. We need to give it to people. That's who should get the sweetheart deal, because the banks, the financial service, and Congress in cahoots caused the problem.
Very quickly, yes or no, the banks need to take a haircut on these mortgages?
They're not taking a haircut now.
But do they need to?
Yes, they need to, and individuals should be given. If I had anything to do with it and was dictator for a day, individual homeowners would be the ones that would get at least a 50% reduction.
We're going to come back and revisit this in a minute. Our discussion, my discussion with Democratic Senate candidate Barry Ellsworth, will continue right after this.
I am dumbfounded that in the year 2012, we still are fighting about birth control.
That's New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand capturing a sentiment that is probably shared by a lot of folks as Washington and its media enjoys one of its periodic obsessions with the culture wars. Picking up the conversation with Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Barry Ellsworth. Mr. Ellsworth, are you much of a culture warrior?
I agree with her. I think it's ridiculous that we're having these types of arguments now. But we are.
I do too. You know what? Let's go back to financial stuff instead then. We'll leave that for others to mess around with. I want to get into, you of course have been very critical of Congress's role, of the financial service industry's role in bringing all of this together. And as I listen to Republican candidates, particularly those for Congress, but really, and the President, but really Republicans everywhere, they, for instance, hate Dodd-Frank, which was too light, in my opinion.
It is.
And they seem to be apologizing for these same corporations that wrought so much havoc on the economy and instead seem to be blaming poor people for trying to buy houses. I mean, is there a disconnect between politics, between Washington, and between real people in the real world? I mean, is that what's prompting you to run, I guess is what I'm asking in part.
What's prompting me to run is, we go back to the definition of insanity thing. We keep sending these same people back there, and they keep doing the same thing. Every election time they say, we're going to fix this. And they never fix it, ever, ever, ever. Yeah. They go back, we've got a bought Congress, they go back and they get their card punched.
Well, who bought them?
Wall Street bought them. Oil companies bought them.
I guess that's really,
industry.
Let me try my rambling question, and let me try to phrase it a little bit more directly. Do you buy any of this argument from the Republicans that, for instance, this entire process, this entire crisis, was created by government?
No, it was created. What we need are people that have done something with their lives besides be in and run for office, because they don't know how to do anything else. Yeah. And we're nuts. We keep sending them back there, all right? I could write legislation, mortgage legislation, in 5 pages that would solve the entire problem.
Well, I'd like to see that. I think we'd all like to see that.
It would be easy. Anytime you get a 2,300-page bill or an 1,800-page bill, guess what? They're screwing you, and the Congress people didn't write that.
Right.
That's health care, it's oil companies. Oil companies and big corporations have created our tax code.
Yeah,
it's not fair. And they say they're going to change it every year, and then they never change anything. But you know what I'd like to do?
What would you like to do?
Fix it in the future. Here's what we need to do to fix things. We need to quit having the fighting, and we need to take money, and we need to invest in our infrastructure. And by doing that, we need to create jobs. And all these people say in a free market, you can't do that. Well, in a free market, I have the right to ask the people to let...
Haven't you been watching Fox News? Government can't create jobs.
Yeah, in a free market, we the people can get together and decide to build things like the interstate highway system, which President Eisenhower did, Boulder Dam. All of those were national projects, and they're wonderful projects. We need to rebuild our infrastructure. We need to upgrade the electrical grid. We've got bridges and roads that are falling apart. Here we could build solar plants. All of that would be an investment in the middle class. It would create jobs, and it would make us stronger as a country. Okay? 10 years down the road, we'd have it done, and we'd be extremely strong.
And you'd have to come up with some money to do that. Where are we going to get the money? That's
Same
what they
place
always
we
ask.
get it always. We print it. Okay? And you invest in the country. You don't sit and throw it down the tubes and let Wall Street steal it.
Do we have to tax anybody? I mean, there is...
We always have to tax. But if we went back there, anybody with any common sense could change the tax code to make it fair and make big corporations pay their fair share and cut wasteful spending, and we could have plenty of money.
Look, I think your heart's in the right place. You're obviously a smart guy, been around, got a lot of experience. The question that I have is why U.S. Senate? And I'll be more specific. As I look around at the Nevada political landscape, for instance, why not Congressional District 3? Why not the House? I mean, you've got somebody out there who's coming from the legislature, doesn't have near the name recognition that Shelley Berkeley does. I mean, why not go run out there instead of going up against the juggernaut?
I don't want Shelley Berkeley in office. I don't want any of these people that have been back there for 15, 20 years that have created this problem in office. In the House, there's 435 people. In the Senate...
But do you have any... But seriously, I mean, let's be realistic. You don't have a chance of winning against Shelley Berkeley. It's just unfathomable that that's going to happen.
This way. Everybody in Nevada that's listening to this would be much better off, I can guarantee it, if you voted for me and put me in the Senate. You would be much better off in 1 or 2 years from now than putting one of these other people that have been running and been back there for years.
Well, let's stipulate that that's right. I don't know realistically it's going to happen. But listen, thank you very, very much for coming on. I've enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
I enjoy your outlook on these issues. Sincerely, I really do. All right. When we come back, I will have some final thoughts right after this.